So if you want to go ahead and use the chat option to ask anything throughout the presentation. So a little introduction about Zact. We are a solution-focused consulting firm based in Sandy, Utah. We help clients enhance productivity and create better work experiences with their technology investments. Our team of architects, developers, designers, analysts, and project managers are passionate about Microsoft experts who bring both innovative approaches and best practice methodologies to all of our client partnerships. We're here to help you get the most from your productivity tools like Office 365 and Teams. We can show you how to organize, share, and secure your documents and information with SharePoint and modern intranet portals. So we can build Power Dashboards and Power BI, as well as other complementary technologies to help you simplify and automate your business processes or process needs and increase communication. So we're excited to have you join us today and learn more about this specific tool. So I want to introduce you to the presenter today. Her name is Alyssa Smith. Alyssa has been a software applications facilitator for over 20 years. She has also been a technical writing consultant and an adjunct instructor at Davis Technology College and Weber State University. And she has taught classes for Nike Corporation and local Utah companies like Lifetime Products. She loves teaching and traveling and spending time with her dysfunctional dog and family. So I'm going to give it over to Alyssa now. And again, if you have any questions about the presentation, please use the chat feature. Thanks.
Thanks so much, Cassie. Appreciate that. Welcome, everybody. We really appreciate you being here for this event. The good news is it's only an hour and it's Friday. Two great positives. So really with this session, what we're trying to do is help everybody wrap their heads around Microsoft Power Automate. What's funny about Power Automate is they changed the name. It used to be Microsoft Flow. Now it is Power Automate. However, the word flow is still very important to the application. So as we're getting started, like Cassie already shared, please put questions in the chat. We will have a few minutes at the end to answer questions, but really the objective of this session is to help give those of us that are maybe a little bit intimidated with this application, understanding that it's not as scary as you think and it's very powerful. So Power Automate is actually part of Microsoft's Power Platform. That platform includes Power Automate, the Power Apps, and also Power BI. I do love all those power words, right? But specifically with Power Automate, we don't want to confuse it with the Power Applications or Power Apps app. They are different. Power Automate is all about making connections between applications. You know, for many years now, there are people whose entire job class is keeping track of different things and bringing things together because software applications will not allow them to connect. Power Automate is about putting those people out of a job because it's about bringing things together. And today we're going to show you some easy ways to start your journey into how to utilize Power Automate. But the first thing I want to do is clarify, it used to be called Flow, now it's called Power Automate, and also it's not to be confused with Power BI or Power Apps just because Microsoft loves the word power. But they all are part of the power suite of Microsoft Office. So the thing to know is that Power Automate, much like the other Office 365 applications, comes in multiple flavors. I kind of like to tell people, just like ice cream comes in many flavors, software these days, you know, it's not just the software we install on our computers anymore. So there are actually 3 different versions of Power Automate. There is a desktop app that I'm going to show you today that's fairly new. Then there is the online Power Automate app. This is actually the older one. It is part of Office 365, but for more sharing capabilities with it, you do have to pay more for licensing. And then there's also a mobile app that's available both in Android and also the iOS platform. So you can actually have a Power Automate flow on your phone that you can control. During this event, I'm not going to show you the mobile app. It's a little bit tricky, but do know that it is available for download through the Microsoft Play Store. You can get it. And if you have already been using especially the online version of Power Automate, you can access your flows from your cell phone. It's pretty cool. So let's just take a minute and a couple of terms you might see in here. First of all, in Power Automate, any type of automation you create is called a flow. So that's that's why the word flow is still so important. And when we go in and look at Power Automate, you're going to see some different kinds of flows. Today, we're really going to work with these 3 types, and no, there is no test on this after the event, but I just want you to see a little bit of the vocabulary. You've got cloud flows, and you've got desktop flows, and then business process flows. And again, these are not something you have to memorize, but as you create different kinds of automation in Power Automate, these are the 3 basic categories that you can create. There are many, many variations within them, but this helps to determine what types of automation you're going to be creating. All right, so the good news is I'm not going to read you these slides, and mostly we're going to be in Power Automate actually showing you what these things look like. These are some resources that I will post to the chat at the end of the event. Microsoft has some good documentation on Power Automate, so just know that at the end I'm going to share these in the chat. And yes, if you start delving into Power Automate, you are going to want resources because it's a pretty packed application. But that being said, I'm going to share my screen and we are going to start our journey looking at the online version of Power Automate. I think for most people that are new to Power Automate, this is the best place to start their journey. And it does start in Office 365 because that is a great doorway to the Power Automate application. So I'm going to turn off the PowerPoint presentation and flip my screen share over. And you're going to be seeing the desktop here for a user by the name of Megan. I often use Megan when I do training. So what we want to do is introduce you first of all, how do you get to Power Automate? I have just gone into the Office 365 homepage for a company called Contoso. If you've ever attended a Microsoft training class, Contoso is a fictitious company that they use all the time. A great doorway to the online application of Power Automate is through your Office 365 homepage. So, sometimes you may not recognize what Power Automate exactly, what does it look like, right? If you're new to it, you may not know. So down here in the bottom left-hand corner, this is the All Apps button in the Office 365 portal. And remember, you can always get here by coming to any browser. And if you've already logged into your computer, if you just type office.com, it will take you here. Or if you do portal.office.com. I know I'm going back to the very beginning, but sometimes like it says in the song, you got to start at the very good beginning because it's a good place to start. Now that we're here, this button in the bottom left-hand corner will take us to all the apps that are part of our corporate Office 365 account. And this is nice because it actually spells out the words. And Power Automate is alphabetically, but look at all these powers, right? Power Automate is recognizable by this little blue arrow. That is the logo that goes with Power Automate, and it is important to kind of start recognizing those logos because Microsoft loves them. So that's what we're going to do is click on that, and it will then take us to the Power Automate online application. So this is Power Automate Online. Let's just do a little quick overview of what we're seeing here. Just like all Microsoft's online apps, there is a navigation pane over here on the left. In the last few years, Microsoft's been trying pretty hard to create a consistent user interface in their online applications. That being said, they do very different things, and Power Automate's one of those. So notice in the top left-hand corner under the app launcher, you do have the navigation button that allows you to expand and collapse this pane. And this is really where all of your tools for Power Automate exist. Now the home is going to be basically your getting started area. So you'll see here that they suggest different templates for flows that you can create. And then down here, I'm also seeing some flows that Megan, the user that I'm playing, has already created. Now, again, we're looking at this from the perspective of I am brand new to Power Automate. What are some things that can help me? Just like Microsoft Teams, you will see in Power Automate, they have actually built in a learning module within the application. So down here in the bottom left-hand corner, there is a Learn button that if you click on it, it takes you to the Microsoft Power Automate site. And this is a link that I'm going to provide at the end of the session. But again, there's some good stuff here on really getting started with Power Automate. So this is where you can come, and this is straight from Microsoft. And I usually find that the Microsoft stuff may be really dry, but it's correct, right? And it's up to date. So this is a great resource, but again, it does require time because They don't spoon feed it to you. You have to sit down and watch the videos and go through the content. But this is built into the platform, and it will open up in its own browser tab. Now, another great thing to know about Power Automate over here on the left in the navigation pane is that you have the ability to create your own automations. And you'll see here that on the Create tab, you're going to see kind of some examples of those types of flows that I mentioned at the beginning. So we're seeing here that we've got automated flows, we've got triggered flows, and really their names kind of designate what they do. A trigger means there's something that makes it happen. It can be an email, it can be something added to a SharePoint list, right? A scheduled flow is something that is, just like the name implies, it's scheduled. Desktop flows have everything to do with your desktop software. And then you've got business process flows that are kind of a combination of all of these things together. We're going to look at one of them today. Now, if you are brand new to Power Automate, one of the best places to start to just get your feet wet is to use the templates. There are hundreds of templates that Microsoft has created that really can help hold your hand as you're beginning to create some automations. And I want to show you just a couple to let you see how some of these can be quite simple. They are very simple or they are very complicated. So we want to start with some simple ones. When I go to the templates view, you're going to see that there are categories. Right now I'm seeing all flows that are in the templates. And just like a template in Excel might create an invoice, a template in Power Automate will, when you're done filling in all the little pieces, create a flow. And you'll see here that there are categories. Now I can come up here and I can search for category. I can search for it by what it does, or I could even search for it, for example, by the software application maybe involved with it, like SharePoint. So you'll see here when I go to SharePoint, there are many different flows that integrate SharePoint into them, and it gives you a description. When you click on it, it will actually take you into the flow, and it will take you step by step through what that flow does. So we're going to look at a couple of these just so you can see some examples of easy ones to start with. One of the ones that I think is a fun one integrates both Microsoft Teams, which again is Microsoft's big collaboration platform, and Outlook, right, which has been our scheduling, email, all the above platform for decades. So right here, you'll see that one of the categories I have here is email. And when I click on it, this is going to show me all the different types, and sometimes it's not just Outlook that I'm seeing here. Some of these might even have to do with Gmail, but the one that I want to play with actually brings together Outlook and Teams. And you'll see right here, there's this one that will send an email when a new message is created in Teams. This is one that's kind of good for people that are still trying to get their feet wet in Teams, because it helps them to use their Outlook, but also see when something's going on in Teams that they need to pay attention to. So we're going to go ahead and click on this template. Now, one of the nice things about this one is it has very few pieces, and we're just waiting right now for the website to get up to date and get us in there. All right, so right here you'll see that it's showing me the two applications involved in the automation or the flow, and down here it's showing me the two different applications it's going to connect together. So when a new message is posted into a channel in a team, and remember, channels are those basically breakout areas within your team. It's going to post a message to Outlook. And you can see here how it's already connected my Office 365 account for Megan. It can do this automatically because we're already logged into Office 365. Now, there's still a few more details to fill in, so I'm going to click on Continue. Because if you think about this, I need to be able to tell, again, Power Automate what team, what channel, and also what email address, right? We need to spell out some specifics. So right here, sometimes there's a little bit of what is a team ID? That's the name of the team. So if I click on the arrow right here, it's going to show me, and it can take a few moments, what teams I have access to. Well, the team that I want to use this for is the Mark 8 project team. Now, channel ID, that's the name of the channel. So let's click. These are the channels within that team. I'm going to select the design channel. Now, down here it's saying, okay, who should the email go to? Well, Megan is creating this channel for herself. So it's going to come in, and I'm going to notice it would even give me suggested people. Or I can just start typing in Megan's name and it will automatically select Megan. I can do more than one person if I want. These people would be coming from your company Active Directory or address list if you want to make it easier. Now right here, notice that I can now say what the email message will say. And I can change this text if I want. What we're seeing here, these three little, again, message areas, these are dynamic content that are automatically created by Microsoft Power Automate for us. And we'll actually look at some of these later on in just a minute. But you can see here that it will say who's the message is from. We can also see here the importance and then the message body. This is going to actually be the content coming from Teams into our email. Now I'm going to click on Save. Now, as this, again, is saving, you'll see that it gives you little messages to let you know if your flow is successful. Green is always good. Red is bad, just like traffic lights. So now that it's actually been saved, a couple things to look at, and these are something that you'll see me do. After a flow has been successfully saved, you'll see that I have two options in the top right-hand corner to double check that the flow is working. One of them is the flow checker. I find this one especially helpful when my flow has multiple steps. It's basically like an error checker, and you'll see here that it would take me through and show me if there are any errors or warnings with this flow. The second one is the test. This actually allows you to test your flow. Now you'll see here that to test this particular flow, it's only going to be triggered when a message is sent to the, again, team and to the design channel. So I'm going to just do a manual test, right, which means I have to trigger it myself, but the flow is complete. So how does this flow work? Well, I actually have to go in and run it. So if I go into Microsoft Teams and I go to the Mark8 project team and I go to my design channel, and then I come in and I post a new, again, conversation to this channel. This is what should trigger that email. Now, do know the first time you create a flow, it can take a few moments for everything to get engaged. And the more complicated the flow is, the longer it can take. We'll give it a couple moments while we create another flow while we're waiting for that one to trigger. Now, my flow is, notice right here, it just told me it ran successfully. Now, let's go ahead and look at this flow again that I just created. I'm going to go ahead and click on this button and it's taking me back in. This is showing you the detail of the flow, right? This is showing me a description of what it does. It's showing me that it's currently turned on. And it's also showing me, oh, looks like it's being a little bit naughty because my Microsoft is. We'll give it a minute and see if it'll come in. But now if we go into the My Flows view and look at that flow, we can see it here. So this is showing all the flows that Megan currently has attributed to her account. Now you'll see that the pencil means that I can edit that flow. I also have this option to share it with coworkers. And then if I click on the three dots right here, another option I have is analytics. And this is a pretty cool piece. It's very important to Office 365, where it will keep track of basically the usage of your automation. And when it can, it will actually let you see basically analytics behind how many times it's run, any errors that are inside of it. Because this one is brand new, we're not seeing a lot going on yet. But once there is data available, we would be able to come in and check on it at any time. And the analytics piece is really powerful for almost anything in Office 365. Let's leave that one to cook for a minute and show you one more. Now, this one is a little bit different because it also connects Outlook, but it connects it with an application called Planner. So I just want to show you what Planner looks like. I'm going into Teams, and Planner used to be called Planner. Now it's called Tasks by Microsoft Planner. Microsoft updated the name of it a few months ago, might be longer than that. But basically what you're going to see is inside Teams, and this is also something that you can have inside of Office 365, you have tasks that appear in buckets. So this is just to let you see what the Planner app looks like. And the particular automation that I want to show you next is basically one that when basically what will happen is that it will post a message in Teams when a task is complete. I apologize, I think I said Outlook, but this is one that does Teams and Planner. So a little bit different. So when one of these tasks gets completed, it lets the team members know in a channel. All right. Again, this is one that's easy and quick, and that's part of why we're doing it. So I'm going to go back to my templates again, and this time I'm going to look for another category, and I could even do it by name of the app, planner, or tasks by to do. You're going to see there are many, many different ones here that bring in things to do with the planner application. And the one I want in this case is I want to be able to, like I said, post a message in Teams when a task in Planner is complete. And I'm trying to find the one that I want. Sorry, guys, here we go. It's right here. Post message in Teams when Planner task is complete. So we've seen what Planner looks like. And right here, you'll see that it's already starting to connect Planner to Teams. Now, even though the plan I showed you is inside of Teams already, it doesn't necessarily notify the entire team when one of those tasks gets done. There are places where you can go within Planner to do that, but this is going to add an extra layer of notification. So to complete building out the automation or the flow, I'm going to click on continue, and that's going to take me in so that I can get the specific pieces done. So the first thing is group ID, and notice that this is showing me the planner or the to-do by planner. So I need to pick where my particular, again, plan is located. And for me, I know that it's in the Mark 8 project team is where the plan is created. Then if I come here, I can pick the specific plan. And this is because this particular plan is actually part of a team. So the group ID is also the team name. The plan ID is the actual plan name. Now down here, I need to tell the flow what team I want the message to go to when a task gets done. So I'm going to come here, and again, it's thinking, and I'm going to tell it that it's the Mark 8 project team. So I'm going to pick that one, and then I'm going to tell it which channel. And in this case, it will be the general channel. And if I want to edit the actual text right here, otherwise it will just say planner task titled, whatever the name of the task is completed. That's what the actual messaging will be. And then I'm going to save that. And again, you'll know that everything is successful if you get the green message up in the top left-hand corner, letting us know that yes, that task is been saved. If we click here on the back arrow, you know, it's going to let me know, hey, you're leaving pages, but I know everything's been saved. So now it's just letting me see that yes, my flow is ready to run. And I can again see the information about when it was created, what applications it's posting together. And notice I am the owner of the flow. So when you create a flow, you're automatically assigned ownership of it. Now, if I go back to the My Flows view, I'll see my new flow is in here. And again, if I ever wanted to go back into it and see the details, this would take me in to actually edit the flow. I'd come here to the top right-hand corner on the edit button, and this would actually allow me to come in and edit those details for the flow, to edit the actual flow itself. You'll see that I can actually come back to the My Flows view, and then I have the edit button here. Now in this case, we want to go ahead and try it out, and let's see if it's actually working. The other thing I can also do to make sure that everything is turned on is when I click on this ellipses, you'll notice it says turn off, and that means this flow is running right now. This one is set up to be automatically running as soon as I've created it. So again, the trigger for this is to go into Teams and access the Mark 8 project plan, and then come in and mark one of these tasks within my plan as complete. And I can do that just by clicking on this check mark, and you'll notice it just got marked as complete. Now, once the flow runs, and again, sometimes it can take a little bit of time, when I go into my Mark 8 project team and I go to the Post tab, eventually what I'll see is that it will tell me right here in the Post tab of that general channel that that particular task has been completed. This is one that I did earlier just to show you an example, because I think it may take a few minutes for the flow to actually run. So we'll come back to this one because sometimes, like I said, when you first create the flow, it takes a little bit of time for it to bake. Now, in the meantime, I want to show you a more complicated flow. So back inside of our, again, Power Automate Online. This time we're going to create a flow from scratch. For this one, I want to create an approval flow, and this is an example of a multiple step flow and even a business process flow. It's a little bit more complicated, but this is to kind of show you now that we're going to go beyond the templates. But again, great place to start. Now notice as I come in to create a flow that it's asking me what type of flow I would like to create, and even again suggesting templates. But in this case, I want to go ahead and just start at the very beginning, like I said. So I'm going to come in And even if I go back to the My Flows view, you'll notice here I can start from blank. It's asking me the type I want. But I also want you to see that if you go to the My Flows view, there's also a new flow button up here as well, giving you those same options. And in my case, I want to go ahead and do an automated cloud flow. Okay, this will allow me to build my own. But again, as we go through, it's always going to be making suggestions. Again, notice here, what is the option that will create your flow or even name your flow? I'm going to name my flow in a few minutes. So for right now, I'm going to skip all this help it's trying to give me, but we will use more help in a minute. So the first thing is what's going to be the beginning app and even the trigger. For me, my trigger is going to come from SharePoint. And here's the one thing that I want to stop before we do the next step. What we're going to be doing here is creating an approval flow. And the approval flow, when a file is sent to a specific folder within a team, again, we're bringing in that Teams piece, it's going to allow me to approve or reject. It's going to allow for an approval process. So let me go back into Teams and just do one setup step. Here in Teams, I have this digital initiative public relations team. And what I want to do in this team is create 2 channels. Okay, remember, channels are just basically the sub projects or the sub breakout areas of the team where they can focus their work. Sorry, I couldn't say the word focus. So the first channel I'm going to do is I'm going to create a pre-approval channel for any content that is going to be pre-approved. And then I'm going to create an approved channel. Now, the other thing to know within Teams that sometimes people don't realize is that behind Teams, for every channel that you create, there is a SharePoint site, and within that SharePoint site, there are document libraries. And for each channel that I create, it adds a new folder to that document library. So I could do this on the SharePoint site, or I can do it in Teams because Teams and SharePoint are best friends. So this is kind of an example of doing it on the Teams site. You wouldn't want to do it both in the SharePoint site attributed to the team and in Teams. By doing it here in Teams, it's doing it in the SharePoint site for me. And just to show you what I mean, if I were to come to either of these new channels I've created, I could actually eventually come in and go to the Files tab where files are stored in a channel, and it would give me access to the SharePoint site attributed to the team. And if I go to the SharePoint site, you'll see that over here I see documents, and for each channel I create in the documents side of the SharePoint site, it creates a folder for storage. And those 2 channels I just created, pre-approval and approval, are there already. So we're going to use them in our approval process that we're going to do. So I'm going to go back into Teams and just see that my channels are there. And now we're going to go back into Power Automate Online. So I'm here. I am going to be using SharePoint, even though it's Teams. Remember, Teams and SharePoint in this case are the same. And the trigger is going to be down here. You're going to see there are many different triggers that I can pick, but mine is going to be when a file is created or modified. And you'll see that there are many different triggers here, and I want to scroll down. I always suggest that you make sure you go all the way down to the bottom because there can be many different options. So ours is going to be when a file is created or modified, properties only. That will be our trigger. Now the next step is to tell, again, what SharePoint site, and in this case I'm using the SharePoint site attributed with that team. So I'm going to click here, and it can take it a little bit of time to look through and connect. Oh, you're now going to something in Teams. The team that I'm connecting to is that digital initiative team, the one I just created the pre-approval and approved in. The second one is, remember, within that team I have those folders. What folder is it going to be focusing on? And in my case, I'm going to go ahead and click on this arrow, and you'll notice that it lets me see the different folders. It's the documents folder of that SharePoint site. And then within that, I also have the specific folder. So right here I can click, and you'll see it shows me all these different folders, but the one I want, especially if it's attributed with Teams, is going to be shared documents. So that's the one that I'm going to click on. And you'll notice it's showing me, oh, these are all the different ones, but we're just going to stick with shared documents. That's all it'll need for right now. Let me get it one more time. Sorry, guys, it's being a little bit. It's thinking. There we go. Nope, you're thinking too far. All right, Now we're going to go ahead and we need to continue adding more steps. We've just started saying, hey, when a file is added to this area, we need to be able to control what's happening. So the next step we're going to do is we're now going to create our approval process. So for this, we're actually going to do a search for a type of operation to do with approvals. And there are lots of different ones. So we're going to pick the approvals category. Then you'll see as soon as I do that, that there's lots of different types of approvals that you can pick from. But the one that we want, okay, I'm going to go ahead and see if this will close here for us. Yes, we know. Sorry, it is. It's being a little bit slow. Sometimes my training environment can be difficult. And we're going to create an approval. Now the next step is to decide what type of an approval you're going to make. And again, you'll see that it gives you different types. Ours is going to be everyone must approve is the type of approval that we want. Now it's going to ask us to create a title for this approval. So we're just going to come in and we're just going to give it a name. I'm just going to call it digital approvals. I should call it digital initiative approvals, but for the sake of time, we'll shorten that so you guys don't have to watch me type. Now, who is going to get the email when something is approved? Or I should say, who's going to be the approver? Again, type in people's email addresses. You can do more than one just by having the semicolon between them. I'm going to do Megan and Patty, and these people are coming straight from my company address list. Okay, and I could type someone from outside the organization, but that can be a security. So it just depends. But here I've got Patty, Megan, and Diego. So I can have multiple approvers on here. Now details. This section actually you can leave as is, okay, but the item link, this is where we decide what it is that we're going to have them approve. And in this case, it's when an item is added to that particular folder that we are going to, we're going to help it, we're going to actually show what that item is here in a minute. So what we're going to do is use dynamic content. Now, this is the first time we've looked at dynamic content. This is one of the things that makes Power Automate so powerful and awesome is the fact that it automatically calls out specific pieces of information so that you're not required to create code to do that with. You'll see here that I have dynamic content in this list, and it does try to give you an idea of what the dynamic content is that we're going to use. For us, we want to help create a link so that the manager can get to the file to approve it. So in this list of different options, I'm going to come in and type in the type of dynamic content that I want to use. In this case, it's an option called link to item. So this is a link to get to a file or list item, and you'll notice that only people with permission, in this case, people that are part of the particular team would have access to it. So that's what we're going to be doing. Now, this next part, the link item description, this is where you could actually describe what this item up here is. But for right now, we're going to hold with that. And now we're going to go ahead and click on our next step, right? And you'll see that our next step is we need to actually create the condition for the approval. And for this, we're going to be doing basically like an if statement, right? So what we're going to do here is come in and pick a condition. You can see that under my different actions that I have. This creates the ability to do something yes and the ability to do something no. So if it's approved, do this. If it's rejected, do something else. And in our case, if it's approved, we want to have an email sent. If it's rejected, we want to have an email sent. So under the if yes, we're going to say add an action, but also up here under the condition, I need to do a little bit of specifying. So we're going to go ahead and type in what our value is. It's going to be outcome. And then we're going to say that if it's equal to approve, okay, which is basically like saying yes. And we do want to do a capital on our approve and spell it correctly. All right. So now we're going to come down here and say what to happen if it is approved. Okay, if we do get approved, what do we want to have happen? Well, I want to send an email. So I'm going to type in Outlook. Now we're using Office 365, so we want to use Outlook for Office 365. And I am going to scroll down just a little bit so you can see all the different options here. So with Office 365, what do I want to have happen? I want to send an email. And notice I'm going to be doing it using Office 365 Outlook V2. Okay. And once I do that, we're going to specify more of the specifics of that email that gets sent with the approval here in just a minute. But on the no side, I want to do the same thing. So to save myself a little bit of time, I'm going to copy this email without adding the detail to my if no section, and then I'll again do the specifics. To do that, you're going to see an ellipses in the top right hand corner. You can actually copy this specific area. Now that it's copied to my clipboard, I'm going to come over here and open up to do the if no portion. And you'll see here that there are, again, different things I can pick. We did, again, the Outlook, but right here you also have a clipboard where if you've taken something and copied it, you can paste it in. And again, it does take a minute, but now if we open up that conditions section, we'll see that they're both going to be doing an email. Now we need to do the actual specifics of the email. So for this part, the first thing I need to do is specify the email addresses that would, again, that it would go to. In this case, we just want it to be whoever the approver is, and it can, again, update. So we're going to come in and actually use some dynamic content for this. Notice right here, I have my dynamic content options again. I'm going to scroll down a little bit, and you'll notice it gives me different ones. Now this one is, we're going to say modified by email, and notice the description on it. Email address of the user who last changed this item. That's perfect because it can adjust as different people, go into the approval process. Now, body of the email is up to you, the subject, I should say, not the body. I apologize for that. And this one's just going to be file approved and move to approved folder is our subject line. Now, in the body of the email, I want to give them some specific information about the file. So the first of the thing I want to do is refer to the file name. This is where we can use that dynamic content again. And I can already see it opening up underneath. So I actually want the file name. And if I just come in and type in name and then scroll down in my dynamic content, there's quite a lot there. And I apologize, I'm going to kind of adjust my screen just a little bit to make this easier to see. You'll notice this will be the file name of the item in the document library. And you can see how it calls it out. The next one that we want is a link to the item so they could get to it. So again, as I scroll through, I've got different content here. In this case, I'm going to go ahead and up here at the top, I can search for the item. In this case, we want to do a link to the item. This would create that link so it makes it easier for them to get to it. And finally, we're going to do approver email. This one was being a little bit naughty earlier, so we'll see if it'll come up. And with this one, notice that I have, we're going to actually go in and you can, for example, look for approver email. Like I said earlier, it didn't want to do this one, but we'll see if it will. I'm scrolling down a little bit to see what it'll give me. Yeah, it's being a little bit naughty, so I'm just going to go ahead and do, we'll go ahead and do approver's ID and change it. So these fields will create the custom content inside my email. Now we need to do the same thing on the other side. So next step is we're going to come over and we're going to go to the if no side and do the, again, edits on that side. But one more thing, and I apologize, let's finish out this side first. We also need to tell if it is a yes, they'll get this email, but also we need to have the file moved to the correct folder. So what we're going to do here is actually come in and we're going to add one more action. And our action is going to be a move. So notice I've typed in move and you'll see here I have different options. In our case, we want to move file. So I'm going to select that. Now I have to tell it what file it is that it's moving to. So first thing is going to be what SharePoint site it is. So if I click here, you'll notice again, it gives me that list. These are the SharePoint sites associated with the teams. I'm using the Digital Initiative Public Relations team for this. So I'm going to pick that site. Now the file to move, that's our next one. And for this, I'm actually going to use some dynamic content again. You'll see that again, if I type in a thing called identifier here in my dynamic content, this is a value that can be used to that can be used in the file related to the action. So we're going to go ahead and use this. You see, I only want it once. Then we want where it's going to end up, right? This is going to be where do we want it to go? So for the destination address, again, I'm going to pick that same team, which is the Digital Initiative Public Relations team. Now I have to tell it what folder within that SharePoint site or team I want it to go to. This is where we're going to get specific. I'm going to go to Shared Documents, open up that side, and then I'm going to go to Approved because that's the folder I want the document moved to. Now, if there were another file already in that folder with the same name, what I'm going to do is tell it here that you can keep the same folder, move the new file in, but add a character to the end of its name so that you can have multiple files with the same name, but you're just adding one additional character at the end. So we're not writing over the top of content that's already there. All right, so now we've said what to do when something does end up getting approved. We're going to move it into the approved folder. Now what I'm going to do is come over to my rejected side and give them an email of what happens if something is rejected. So right here, what I'm going to do is, first of all, I'm going to type in, or, how do I know who the email is going to go to? And just like we did before, we're going to use content and say modified by email. That means we're going to have the email go to whoever changed the item last. Okay. Then we're going to do the, again, subject line here. And our subject line is just going to be, hey, file rejected, please resubmit your file with changes, right? Now down here in the body of my email, I can add more, more specific information. And there is some content down here, but again, this was one that was being a little bit naughty earlier. We can see here that there's an option here to do comments associated with content approval of the list item. So we'll do that one, but again, it wasn't working earlier. So we're going to go ahead and keep that. Now we're actually to the point where we've gotten our flow set up. I'm going to come to the top right-hand corner and save it. Now you can already see that, again, when it's done saving, it lets me know that it's ready to go. And just like I mentioned earlier, I want to go ahead and save this flow with a better name. If I just click on save, it's just going to save it with the name that it has, which is fine. Okay, but if I'd like to give it a better name, when we come in here, notice that I can give it a more specific name. So for example, if I don't want it to be called when a file name is updated, that's quite a doozy, isn't it? I can actually come in and create my own name for it, and I'm just going to call it Digital Initiative Approval. And type the word initiative today. But that will be a name that I will understand. Down here, you're going to see that this is basically just for me at this point, and I'm going to save it. Now, after I've done that, my flow is going to get created. Okay, and again, that was a multiple step flow. Again, when I go to my flows, I'll see it in the list right here. If I ever want to go back into that flow, when I click on the three dots, I have the edit option. This will take me back in so that I can see all the steps of that flow. And notice that I have the flow checker again that can do error checking on the flow, and also the test that will help me test it. And again, I can do, this one is more of a manually triggered because it's only going to happen when we actually move something into that folder. But notice I can save and test it. Now it's all going to be done from the team side, because the idea here is that when we move a file into the Digital Initiative, again, SharePoint site, into one of those files tabs, before it can actually be moved to the approval folder, it has to be approved by one of those people in the email, which would be Megan or Patty. So I'm going to go ahead and upload a file in there, and we'll give it a minute. And it's being added to the shared folder. We'll see it get added into that. And even though this is in Teams, this is actually part of that SharePoint site. Now, while we leave that flow to cook, because we have just a few minutes left, I want to go ahead and just switch for a minute and show you the desktop version of Power Automate. Now, the desktop version is free. If you'd like to download it from Power Automate Online, you can come to your persona picture in the top right-hand corner. It might just be your initials. Click on it. And actually, I'm sorry, it's the settings button. And you'll see that in here, it's the help. I apologize. There is a Power Automate desktop option. When you click on this, this will actually take you in to download the the desktop client of Power Automate. So you can see here that it's downloading. It doesn't take very long. It is free, okay? However, once you start sharing your flows with coworkers, that's where you might need additional licensing. And I am providing a link to information about that. Now, once it's done downloading, you can see here that I'm finally starting to get some of those emails. If I were to actually install the desktop client, I just wanted you to see what this looks like. It's very simple and easy to install. We're going to see here it's thinking. You go through the steps and install it. It doesn't take very long. For the sake of time, I'm just going to show you what it looks like. So let me switch over quick. Apologies, I'm going to go ahead and do a different screen. So this is what the desktop client of Flow looks like. To actually be able to use, one thing that's really important to know about the desktop side of Flow is that it uses a type of programming language called RPA, which is Robotic Process Automation. And you get a certain number of days for free, but after that time allotment's up, you have to pay more money for it when you're using the desktop client. All right, but I do want to just show you an example of the kinds of things the desktop client can do. It is different than the online, okay? You're not going to see quite as many templates and ways to make things easy, but this is my beginning screen in the desktop client, and it's very simple. In the top right-hand corner, I can create a new flow. You'll notice right here that I can type in the name of flow. I'm calling my launch, Excel, and file, and I'm going to click on create. Now from here, it's going to take me into where I actually build my new flow, and mine's going to be a desktop flow. On the left, you are going to see the different actions that your flow can do. On the right, you're going to see the variables of those actions. Now up here, you can type in, I'm going to type in, for example, Excel. There are actually actions specific to Excel. And if you've ever done macros in Excel, there's some big similarities to this. For example, one of the actions is launch Excel. That's what I'm going to do. I'm going to launch Excel. You'll see that it brings up the details of that action. Do I want it to do a blank document? In my case, actually, I'm going to have it open an existing document, and then it asks me what the path for that file is. So I'm going to go ahead and quickly go to my desktop, locate the file that I want to have it open up. Sorry, clicked too quickly. And that will be one of the steps that my flow takes. So again, we're doing a flow here that would automate something on your desktop. Now, make the instance visible. This means make it so I can see it. Do I want it to be read only? And then notice here the variable that it's creating. And then I'm going to click on save. And over here on the side, you can see the variables that have happened. And then when I'm ready to actually run my flow, notice up here I have the ability to save it. I also have the ability to run it, just like a tape recorder. This reminds me of when I was like 8 and I had one of those cassette tape recorders and I could record myself talking. I'm going to run the flow and we're going to see if it actually works. Now, the way that I know that it works, I'm just going to show you because it's kind of hard to see. This is the file it opened up. So it did launch Excel and it did launch that file. It just took me to a new blank sheet, but this is the bookings file I asked it to open for me in that flow. So again, this is a very short example of the desktop application. The thing to know is that it is free to download, but after you use up, I think it's 90 days you get where all the tools are turned on, then they do charge you additional licensing to get all the bells and whistles. Right now I'm using my free 90 days. Over here on the left, you're going to see that I have the variables window open right now. There's also going to be an elements window, and then there's also a window where you can deal with images associated with your flows. Now this is just my launch Excel and file flow that I have open right now. If I close it, now it's going to take me back to my list of my flows that are saved in my desktop app. And you can see right here how that flow is there. And it gives me the ability to edit that. It would take me back into the window I was in previously. So in some ways, it's like the online version, but there are not as many helper tools in the desktop app. So this is one where I would suggest you start in the online and do a few simple ones like I showed you. And then when you're ready for something more powerful, the desktop app is slammed with all kinds of really great content. And yes, I am going to be sharing some specific online tutorials that I like. A really good one actually about the online Power Automate version because it's significantly different. Now let's go back in just for our final hurrah and check out and see if the, again, the one that we did with the approval flow has worked. Remember that one I just had us create. So I'm going to go back to my flows. I'm in Power Automate Online, back in with Megan. And here's our digital initiative approval. Remember that one? So it should be running. And again, a couple ways to check it are to click on the 3 dots and I can go to run history. And we'll see here that it's telling me something happened. Okay. And also, if I go to the 3 dots and go down to analytics, this would show me basically a little dashboard about the history. Again, the first couple times you do it, it can take it a minute because it's brand new, right? There hasn't been a lot going on with it yet. And that's why we're seeing it kind of take a minute to run. Now, if I go into Outlook and I check my Outlook, you'll see right here that it's showing me that the approval has started, okay? It hasn't run yet. It still looks like it's getting ready to cook, but you can see that it's telling me that some of my approvals are starting to run. I don't think that one we just created yet, though, is quite there. So we have just a couple minutes left. I want to wrap up. So here's what we did on our journey, just to give you a quick rehash of what we covered. We talked about how you can get into Power Automate by starting with your Office 365 homepage. And then we went to Power Automate Online and we explored some of the templates that are available to help you do some really fast connections like Outlook and Teams or Planner and Outlook. Then we went in and actually created our own flow. The one that we did was an approval process, right? And you can see here how we were able to go in and create our very own flow. The other thing we looked at is how after a flow's been created, you can come back to it and use the, again, ellipses to go in and control that flow. And then I kind of finished us off by going into the desktop client of Power Automate just to show you how it looks different, right? It's based on, it's actually a more powerful platform in a lot of ways, but it's more about automating things on your computer locally, whereas Power Automate Online is about making connections between cloud sources. Now I say that, but Power Automate Online will also do some of the things I showed you here, but it does a better job with connecting applications in the cloud, okay, than the desktop client does. So I'm going to go ahead and turn off our shared screen, and I want to take us back to that PowerPoint so that I can share these resources with you, and then we'll have just a couple minutes for Q&A as we're doing that. So I apologize as I jump around for just a second in the screen share, but I just want to show these to you again as we're getting ready to wrap up. Really appreciate everybody joining. Do know that this recording is going to be posted to Zach's website after the event. It usually takes a little bit of time for that to happen. And we have several other presentations there. We have some on Microsoft Teams, some on the whiteboard application, some on Microsoft Lists. These are the resources that I'm going to be posting into the chat. And again, these are all Microsoft. So I try to stick straight with Microsoft. I think the only two that are not Microsoft are the 2 tutorials, but I have overviewed those and I like them. The people doing them actually speak English that you can understand, which sometimes with tutorials can be a little bit tricky. So I'm going to post these links into the chat. Again, my suggestions with Power Automate is that you have to get in and just start digging in it, because it does so much, and so much of it is specific to your own environment. It's very powerful. It's different than Excel and Word because it's connecting different pieces together. And it isn't just Microsoft apps. Today I showed you how to connect, for example, Teams and Outlook, and Planner and Teams, and SharePoint and Outlook. But do know that it also connects many outside sources as well. So you're not just having to connect Microsoft to Microsoft. It has over 100 other types of apps that you can use to connect. So it's very flexible and not having to just be Microsoft centered. All right, I want to see what questions any of you have. We really appreciate you joining. And so I'm going to just stop for a minute. If there are any questions, feel free at this point to post them to the chat, or you're more than welcome as well to just unmute yourselves. And is there anything, Kathy, you guys want to add as we're kind of getting ready to wrap up?
Nope, I don't have anything.
Great, thank you. Really appreciate the help. And again, feel free to let me know if you have any questions. I have posted all those resources to the chat, and we really appreciate everybody joining us today. And again, yeah, thanks everybody for being here. I hope you all have a fantastic weekend. So yeah, the way to get access to the recording will be through Zach's website. Cassie, do you know where they go on the website to access these? Is there a specific place?
I know that we post these things in, under our tech tips, but there should be a way that you can search and it will come up. So we'll let everybody know. And I think we're going to actually email a link to everybody that joined today where they can find it.
Okay, thank you so much.
Yep.
And again, thanks everybody for joining us. Like I said, check out the resources. There's a lot of good content there, but it's not a quick read. It's a sit down and plug it out kind of thing. Have a great day, guys. I'm just going to be here for a few minutes checking the chat for any questions. But again, we really appreciate you joining us today. Again, reach out to Zach if there's anything we can help you with, and have a great weekend. I'm still here, but if you need to head out, thanks again for joining us. Hi, everybody. So we're not ending quite yet, but what I will say is if you need to get to your next thing, we really appreciate you being here. As was shared, the recording will be on Zach's website, or I think they'll also be sharing a link. We'll go ahead and stop the recording at this point just so that we wrap it up on time. And I will be here for a couple more minutes to help answer questions.